everybody, this is Lori at the Calico Cat Quilt Shop in Pipestone, Minnesota, and today we are going to do a demonstration or a tutorial for these little gnome potholders. So you can make them however you want, different seasons. Put some, make it a girl gnome. Thanksgiving, however you want to do it. We are going to do a Santa Claus gnome today. So I have got some scraps of fabric picked out. And let's talk about the method. So all it is 2 flying geese blocks that are put together and then layered with some Insulbrite and batting. And then quilted and bound. Let me show you. I've already got some pieces cut. So this is going to be Santa's beard and his shirt on each side. And then our blue is going to be the sky. And the red is going to be his hat. So we're going to have a lot of red in this one. Anyway, you can do this as 4 at a time flying geese if you want to make 4 of these at a time. I'm using scraps, so they're smaller, and I'm not going to be able to do that. Now the other thing is, these potholders are going to finish at 8.5 inches. So our target for our flying geese blocks are going to be 4.5 by 8.5. And so you can make you're going to have one rectangle like this. There's the top side. And you can make them 4.5 by 8.5 rectangles and then 4.5-inch squares to go on the sides. I know that if I do that, I have issues, and that might just be me, but I have issues and I won't have anything to trim to square up my block. So I choose to make mine 1/2 inch bigger. So I've cut a 5-inch strip, and I'm going to make 5-inch squares for my flying geese. So I squared up one side, and then this was doubled up, so I've got 2 5-inch squares now. I'm going to put those aside, and we're going to cut the red for the hat. And I'm going to end up making 2 of these, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut my end off and leave it doubled. So if you remember, we were going to make 4.5 by 8.5. So I want to make mine a 1/2 inch bigger. So it's going to be 5 by 9. So I'm lining up the 9 on my ruler. Whoops. Glad that wasn't open. That could have been ugly. So now I've got 2 5 by 9-inch rectangles. Okay. And like I said, I'm going to make another one later, so I'm going to set that aside because I don't need all of them right now. But what you'll see is that this is going to give me a little bit extra so that I can trim my flying geese blocks down to the right size. Now we're going to draw a line from corner to corner on all of the 5-inch squares, or 4.5-inch squares if that's what you're doing. And I'm going to go ahead and just get all of these ready to go. And if you want to make these pot holders bigger than 8.5 inches or smaller, you can certainly do that. That's just what I'm using for the example. But you can make your flying geese however small or big you want and go from there. And you could also use these as blocks in a quilt, and you could just have a gnome quilt with all kinds of different gnomes. So then I'm going to get these all lined up. I'm going to do 2 at a time. So I've laid my squares on right sides together on top of my rectangles, and I will stitch on the line that I just drew. Okay, we have got our machine set up, and I'm just going to sew on the line that I just drew. Or close to it. On both of the blocks. Because if I can get it to work here, we can chain piece them. Probably need to be replacing my needle. Okay, and let's see, that is not. Then what I need to do to these is I need to trim the excess off, and if I wanted to use these as half square triangles for something, I could certainly mark, and I could have done this before too, but I can mark a 1/2 inch away, because these are nice big squares. So then I stitch on this line and cut in between them, and then I have a bonus half square triangle. So less waste that way. We're just going to trim about a 1/4 inch off. Of each of them. Oh, I remember which line I'm on. Oh. And then we need to press these open before we sew the other end on. Okay, with that done, then we can put our other square on the end, and then I'm going to stitch on this line. And that line. And then we need to press again. Actually, we need to trim first, don't we? So we're going to trim. Yeah, I didn't think that got the end. There we go. Okay. And then we can press these open and we've got 2 flying geese to square up. And like I said, if you can do this with just using, if you can get a 4.5 by 8.5 inch flying goose block by using a 4.5 inch 8 by 8.5 inch rectangle, more power to you. It just does not work well for me. So we're going to trim these up, and one at a time. I've got my wing clipper tool here. And let's see if I can find the right marks. The only problem is I cannot rotate my cutting mat at the moment, so there's too many things in the way. And I didn't put it at a very good angle. And I know there's an order you're supposed to do this in with this tool, but I don't ever remember what order I'm supposed to do them, and in the end it all works fine, so I'll just do it how it works. So I've got my 4.5 by 8.5 inch flying goose marked with my little stickers here. Fairly close. Okay, there's one. Set that aside. Try it this way this time. No, that doesn't work that way. Oh yeah, maybe it does. I haven't used this for a while. My goose is a little more open. I guess that's just the way it is. My corner's not perfect here, but sometimes that's how it works. So everybody's just a little bit crooked. Okay, so now there's the bottom of my Santa and there is the top. So we are going to put right sides together and sew these 2 blocks together with a 1/4 inch seam. Get this lined up. And then we are going to press our little gnome Santa open. And I'm using white thread, so I'm just gonna press to the dark side. The next thing that we're gonna do is take our backing and put that wrong side up. And then I have got a piece of cotton batting and Insulbrite. So this is a reflective product that will keep heat away from this side. And then this will help absorb any moisture. So I'm going to layer those. I'm going to put Santa on top. And if I want to put a pin or two in here, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to go through the middle first and secure that. I have traded out for my walking foot on my machine. And I think I can just get this lined up and centered halfway decent. And we'll just go with it. And I'm using white thread, so I'm just going to stay on the white, but I'm going to stitch down the middle and then I'm going to come across his beard. And I probably could lengthen my stitch a little bit. And you can quilt this however you want. You just need a few stitches in there to hold everything together. Like I said, I wouldn't need necessarily the batting, but the Insulbrite is the important part. That's going to be reflective for your heat. And then I'm just going to go ahead on the background there and keep it off of the red hat if I can, because it'll blend in a little bit better with the blue and white. Using white thread. And if I didn't want Santa's nose to be quilted, I could put that on before I do this step, but I'm going to go ahead and just quilt his nose on with some zigzag stitches. So we're actually going to do that at the end. So there's our Santa. And I'm going to go ahead and put binding on here. And then we'll do Santa's nose. this part is done, and now we just need to add a nose. And for his nose, I have got this that I thought was kind of cute, and so I've been fussy cutting that. And I'm just going to take the pink part right here. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got some fusible web, and we're going to see if we can get that fused. And then, I guess it doesn't matter which side I draw on, but I have got, I'm just going to use my little apple pop. Well, it'll be easier on this side because I can position it where I want. So then we'll use the fabric marker after all. It'll be easier to see. Gonna cut that out on my line. Hopefully it won't look too much like a clown nose. And then using the manufacturer's instructions, I'm gonna decide how to put my nose on. Hopefully fuse it in place. And then I'm gonna zigzag on here. So I put some matching thread in my machine, and I'm gonna switch to a fairly narrow little zigzag. And then I'm just gonna go around the edge of that nose. And obviously it didn't fuse perfectly, but that's okay, that's why we're stitching it down. The fuse was basically just to hold it temporarily. Okay, there you go. So here's our little gnome Santa pot holder. He'd look cute with a little white puff up there too. So we could do that. But anyway, make yourself one or a bunch or different seasons. There's Thanksgiving, plaid girl, spring, another Santa, with whatever scraps you have or however you want to do it. And it'd be great if you want to share it with us in the comments. So thanks for joining us, and hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye, and Merry Christmas.